So in one of our events, which we call the Collaboratory, we use the FreshBiz game simulation. And one of the premises that we say, if you don't like the game that you're playing, change the game or change the rules.
Yeah. Which to me is a nice opportunity kind of within a laboratory setting to explore how am I showing up, right? So this is a model that I think I've shared for years as a facilitator working with different groups, because a lot of times I'll say, well, I ask you, like, I'll say, how many of you guys want to get good results in your life? And they'll like, yes. And I'll say, how many would say that how you behave leads to the results you get, right? So that's patterns of behaviors. And then I would say, how many would say that what you believe influences what you do, right? And inevitably, people are like, oh yeah, of course, And so we want to explore that, especially as people are playing the game or are showing up at work. What is leading them? Because a lot of times, how I look at this model, and what I typically do from a facilitative standpoint, is an event will occur, for example. Let's say something bad happens in an organization. So they typically call us up and say, we want to address this event.
Let's fix
occurred, right? So what I'll typically do, again, using some facilitation method, so what happened specifically? And then you get into identifying, so what's been happening, kind of, because this is the symptom. And a lot of times people call us up to kind of deal with the symptom, and that's not where the work lies, because the symptoms are there because of some deeper issues. So, it's kind of like, okay, so what just happened? What's been happening? Where else does it happen? Kind of really kind of identify the patterns, and then say what might be some of the drivers. So this is kind of that problem finding methodology that I typically go through. And there's other questions we get into, but it's at this level where you have kind of two sets that are going on of dynamics. So, I often talk about the little voice in our heads, like, that's where the belief. So how often I'll say, what do you say as a member of this team I am, or this community I am, the people in my community are, the people that I work with are, my job is, my life is, my community is. So those are those beliefs or biases, if you will, that kind of, in a way, influence what people do. And then there are what are called rules, and those rules are simply those if-then. So if we're going to be effective, then what do we need to do? And then, of course, there are policies and procedures. And it's at this level, a lot of times, when we start talking about the psychological safety, when we start talking about getting to the undiscussables. And there are times where I'll literally ask the question, very uncomfortable question, is if we could talk about our undiscussables, what would they be so we could get back on track, right? So we want to kind of get it. So you can actually take people down and say, okay, here are the beliefs and rules. Okay, now if we were to change a belief or rule, how would we show up differently and what results we can get? So you can use this in a different way. You can say, okay, what results do we want to get? What are your goals for 2020? If we're going to get those goals, how do we need to show up, right? If we're going to show up that way, what do we need to build our structure around? What are going to be, what's most important to us? What are our values? So a lot of those deeper kind of meaningful things, and this is why conversations and dialogues are so critical, that we can get to those deeper root elements of a team, of an organization, of a community, of a movement, right? Of a campaign. Being really clear on, what do we want? How do we need to show up? And what beliefs and rules do we need to hold on to? The mindset, when we talk about collaborative mindset, this is part of the mindset as well. And then, of course, there might be some structural things, organizational things that we need to change, a policy or procedure. So that's really where this model really comes in handy. So just recognizing where I am on this with a group, but asking questions that are really tied to kind of each level and just keep digging deeper into the process. So
which is really powerful when you think about people setting their goals for 2020.
At least for me, I've always framed it in terms of a self-awareness tool, as well as a problem-finding tool. So it's just fun to play with. And so hopefully the commons people out there can actually take advantage of it. But if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out. But,
And a playful way to really assessing what your beliefs are, which are so subconscious, is really coming to the Collaboratory and experiencing the FreshBiz game simulation.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
It totally confronts you with the mindset that we have been so conditioned by, that is our default operating system. And some of these beliefs are so outdated, and they just need to be, you need to create awareness around them and then hit delete, because they're really no longer serving you.
It's hard to do.
I know.
That's why it's a practice, and that's why I think the 5 radical collaboration skills is a practice of, again, so, the collaborative intent, the self-awareness, the openness, self-accountability, that we have to continue to practice. We call laws of practice, medicine practice, because we're never going to be perfect at it. And I think this kind of puts things in perspective to kind of drill down pretty quickly where you need to make a shift. And it's the shifts down here that leads to the shifts here, which leads to hopefully getting better results, which is, I think, what we're all trying to do in the Commons. So thank you.
Great.